Series 12, Episode 10 of Doctor Who has completely ruined the show. That may seem hyperbolic, but I am dead serious. The sheer number of plot holes, plot contrivances, and as I'm dubbing them, theme holes, is astronomic. The Timeless Child is the absolute worst addition to the Doctor Who canon since his human mother from the TV movie, which this new episode actually debunks, funnily enough. So I'm going to go over some of the biggest issues to show how glaringly awful of an impact this plot twist has had on the 57-year history of our beloved sci-fi program. Plot holes. Number 1. The Valyard is a manifestation of the Doctor's evil side between his 12th and final incarnation. Since we haven't seen the Valyard yet in New Who, we must assume he comes after the 13th Doctor. But 13 knows she has limitless regenerations, and the Valyard's whole plan was to steal the remaining regenerations from the 6th Doctor. This is because the Valyard had run out and he was going to die. Now, this makes no sense. Why would the Valyard steal something that he already has a limitless amount of? Number 2. The Sisterhood of Karn, ironically introduced in the brain of Morbius, saves the 8th Doctor in the 50th anniversary prelude, The Night of the Doctor. He dies in a spaceship crash, but is resurrected and allowed to regenerate using the Elixir of Life, which was created using their sacred flame. This sacred flame is connected to the time vortex. It's the source of regeneration itself. Well, until now. Now, that means that the Sisterhood gave the Doctor his own regeneration energy back to him. It's nonsense. He wouldn't have needed it. Number 3. River Song is a human woman who has an expanded lifespan and can regenerate like a Time Lord. This is because she was conceived by Amy and Rory while the TARDIS was traveling in the time vortex. But since the Time Lords no longer get their regeneration abilities from exposure to the time vortex, we no longer know how River got her powers. Did 11 sleep with Amy? Did he marry his own daughter? I sure hope not, but I don't know what the alternative would be. Number 4. Speaking of 11, remember how he regenerated? He ran out of regeneration energy and was about to die of old age while on Trenzalore. It wasn't until the Time Lords granted him a new regeneration cycle that he was able to avoid death and become the 12th Doctor. But if he was truly the Timeless Child, he never would have gotten to that point. As we know, Time Lords can choose to use or not use their regeneration energy at will. If he had any, he would have been able to sense it, so his whole regeneration makes no sense now. Number 5. And following this line of thought, maybe there was some convoluted reason the Doctor just couldn't tell that he had more regeneration energy inside of him. Or maybe the Time Lords found a way to limit his innate genetic ability to regenerate. As stupid as that is, if it were true, it still wouldn't explain why Rassilon later asks the Doctor, "How many regenerations did we give you again?" Are you honestly telling me that the Lord President of Gallifrey doesn't know the history of his own planet, the history of the Doctor's identity as the Timeless Child? This history, mind you, is something the Master found by just snooping around without a goal. Number 6. This leads me to my next point. Both Rassilon and Omega are completely dismissed by this new lore. It was really Tecteyun's scientific genius that led to the creation of Time Lord Society. All that flack from the 3 Doctors about Omega and Gallifrey's history, it's been retconned now. Perhaps Tecteyun created regenerations, and then Rassilon and Omega figured out time travel. But it's a commonly known history on Gallifrey that exposure to the time vortex is what grants you your regenerations. So how would they be exposed to the time vortex if they haven't discovered time travel yet? And how would they discover time travel if they weren't an advanced civilization yet? They're only an advanced civilization because they discovered regeneration. It says so in this latest episode. So their history is out of order. It's like if someone tried to convince you that the airplane was invented before the wheel. Stupid. Number 7. Next, consider the name of the Doctor. Clara entered the Doctor's time stream on Trenzalore, and she was scattered across it. She saw his entire life, not just his memories. This was his temporal footprint on the universe. Yet, she didn't see anyone before William Hartnell's first Doctor. There was no Ruth, no Timeless Children, no Morbius Doctors. Even the War Doctor, someone Eleven actively tries to mentally repress, was there. If he had really been the Timeless Child, Clara would have seen all of those previous lives. But she didn't. Number 8. Ruth, played by Jo Martin, is some previous incarnation of the Doctor. She does not remember being 13, so she can't come later, and 13 doesn't remember being her, so she must be before William Hartnell. The trouble is, her TARDIS looks like a police box. That is an effect the TARDIS didn't acquire until the first Doctor landed on Earth in his premiere episode, An Unearthly Child. So the appearance of her TARDIS is another confusing plot hole. Number 9. Davros, the Daleks, the Cybermen, Testimony, the Atraxi, the Tesselecta, and the Great Intelligence. All of these universe-spanning organizations with enormous databases and unspeakable ability to gather information. None of them know about the Doctor's lives before Hartnell. Somehow, magically, this secret managed to go undetected, despite the fact that there is at least one incarnation, Ruth, flying around in a police box TARDIS calling herself the Doctor. Hell, the Jadoon know who she is, so why wouldn't the Daleks or the Great Intelligence? Yes, there are secrets that only the Time Lords know, like the Doctor's name, but this is information that the Doctor himself isn't running around sharing with people. Ruth's Doctor is flaunting her identity like any other Doctor. Plot hole. Number 10. Several times during the 7th Doctor's tenure, he hints at being, quote, more than just an ordinary Time Lord. This was originally going to be the Cartmel master plan, and the Doctor was going to be revealed as this reincarnation of the Other. But now we know for sure, without any of that pesky mystery or ambiguity, that the Doctor is the Timeless Child, and had no memory of being the Timeless Child. So then, what in the hell was Seven referring to when he said this? Number 11, and this is a big one, the Morbius faces. These are what many people consider to be the reason Chibnall wrote this plot to begin with, but they don't make any sense in context. If these faces are the lives of the Doctor pre-Hartnell, they should be completely wiped from the Doctor's memory. They shouldn't be available for the screen to show. In other words, the screen in the brain of Morbius is downloading data off a computer that doesn't have any data on it. And if you argue that the machine was simply bringing up to the surface repressed memories, then why would it re-repress them afterwards? That's not the function of the machine at all. It just doesn't make any sense. And to clarify, this was never even a plot hole to begin with. Yes, the creators of this episode did intend for these faces to be previous Doctors, but because everyone else who ever wrote the show didn't, and it would have confusingly messed up the canon, there must be another explanation. Luckily, there is. The Doctor entered into this mind battle with Morbius, who himself is a Time Lord criminal. There's no reason that these faces can't be the previous lives of Morbius instead of the Doctor. So anyone who tells you that this episode was a plot hole until now, just ask them, who is Morbius? I'd be willing to bet they don't even know. Number 12. We know the first Doctor originally grew up as a Shibogan, a Gallifreyan outside the Citadel who cannot regenerate. We know this because we've seen the orphanage where he was raised. Even if this childhood was a lie, and he had actually been alive for countless lifetimes before now, how did they deal with giving the Doctor his regeneration energy when he became a Time Lord? Seeing as it's something you can sense, wouldn't he have been able to tell that they just gave him a dose of something he already had? Did he never once get injured growing up only to find that he could heal himself? Number 13. The Doctor sucks at regenerating. He's just not very good at it. His control over his appearance is always subconscious at best. Meanwhile, characters like the Master and Romana have both indicated a significantly better control over regeneration than the Doctor, choosing their age or their appearance. So why would the Doctor, the progenitor of regeneration himself, be worse at regenerating than the species who copy-pasted it onto themselves? Does that make any sense at all? Okay, now we're moving on to plot contrivances. These aren't exactly plot holes. They can make sense if we're given some sort of explanation, but for now, they remain insane coincidences that break the immersion of the show. Number 1. The Doctor, like all Time Lords, has 2 hearts. Genetically, he is the same as all other Time Lords. The Shobogans, Gallifreyans who live outside the Citadel and cannot regenerate, they also have 2 hearts and an identical genetic makeup to the Time Lords. Why is this? By what insane circumstance would the timeless child be exactly the same genetically as the race of beings who found her? And if the second heart is something you gain when being given regeneration energy, which is insanely stupid, why do modern Shobogans also have 2 hearts? They haven't been given any regeneration energy, meaning they haven't been spliced with the Doctor's DNA yet. Number 2. If the Doctor were the timeless child, and was used for many lifetimes as a secret agent member of the Division, why would the Time Lords decide to wipe his mind and let him live his own life? They are clearly morally bankrupt enough to experiment on a child, so why not kill him or imprison him if he's outlived his usefulness? The alternative is allowing the Doctor to trot about the universe, meaning the secret to regeneration energy itself is open and vulnerable every single time he's off-world. That's like if we sent our citizens out of the country with our nuclear launch codes taped to their back. It's ridiculously stupid, and the Time Lord should be more than smart enough to realize this. Number 3. Remember when 11 used his regeneration energy to heal River's hand? Or when 12 gave some of his regeneration energy to Davros? Well, he only did that on those very rare occasions because, until now, he wasn't aware that he had infinite regeneration energy. But guess what? Now, as the timeless child, every single time a character is injured on screen and the Doctor chooses not to heal them, it's because she's being lazy. Yep, the whole timeless child thing retroactively gave the Doctor super healing powers, and every time she doesn't use them, it's a big dumb plot contrivance. But it doesn't stop there. Number 4. Yes, in small doses, regeneration energy can be used to heal others, but in gigantic, huge large doses, it can be used as a laser beam, strong enough to fell a Dalek warship. Remember when the Doctor did that? Well, guess what? Infinite means endless, limitless, a well without a bottom. So because the Doctor has infinite regeneration energy now, she can shoot deadly lasers from her hands whenever she wants. And every time she doesn't do this, it's, say it with me now, a plot contrivance. Yeah, awesome. Next up, theme holes. What are theme holes? Well, a theme hole is exactly what it sounds like. A hole in the themes of a show that basically ruins its integrity. Let me give you an example. If Batman were fighting crime in Gotham City at 10 p.m., and he was also fighting Superman in Metropolis at 10 p.m., that would be a plot hole. It breaks the logic of the narrative, but it has no effect on the themes. Now, if Batman were to dedicate himself to crime fighting without killing, and then one day he randomly decides to start mowing down criminals with a machine gun, that's a theme hole. There's no logical reason Batman can't pick up a gun and fire it at someone, but it breaks the themes of the story, the themes of being better than the villains and never taking a life. So, how does the Timeless Children create theme holes in Doctor Who? Number 1. The Doctor is no longer a regular Time Lord who got fed up with the rest of them and left to see the universe, over time becoming someone who would intervene in the affairs of others. He didn't develop this altruistic mindset by spending time with humans and learning from them. Now, she was actually the super-duper most special Time Lord ever and was regularly sent on missions to intervene on other planets. This interventionary ideal of the Doctor no longer sets him apart from the rest of the Time Lords because they too thought it was necessary to intervene on other worlds. It's why they created the Division. so this makes the Doctor less special. Number 2. The Doctor was special because he was creative and kind. That is what set him apart from the stuffy Time Lords. Other than that, he was the same. It showed us that being creative and being kind are all it takes to stand out. You don't need to be different to make a difference. Now, the Doctor is special because she's actually interdimensional space Jesus, and all the reasons she's a better person than the rest of the Time Lords are because of who she is genetically. Number 3. The Doctor and the Master are no longer equals. The entire dynamic between these two was brilliant because of how they viewed each other. The Master hates the Doctor for his brilliance, and out of jealousy wants to tear the Doctor down to his level. He can't stand the idea that the Doctor chooses kindness and pacifism, and it drives him mad. The Doctor believes that he and the Master are equals, and he just wants the Master to see this. That was the whole point of the arc between 12 and Missy. The Doctor sees the good in the Master and wants him to be better. Now, they are no longer equals. The Master is actually the one who's correct in his way of thinking. The Doctor actually is better. She's genetically better, historically more important, she's more powerful, everything. The two aren't equals anymore, so their entire dynamic is thrown out the window. Number 4. They destroyed Gallifrey. Not just locked it away or used vague wording about the Time War to explain why we can't go there. They nuked it in Episode 2, then completely wiped its surface of all organic life forms in Episode 10. This is a spit in the face to the 50th anniversary special. What happened to Gallifrey Falls no more? Or what about I know where I'm going, where I've always been going, home, the long way round? Nope. Throw it in the trash. Your home is not only lost, it's been vaporized on screen and is never coming back. Disgusting. It took 9 seasons to bring back the Doctor's home world, and Chibnall destroyed it again in only 2. Number 5. William Hartnell is no longer the first Doctor. Yes, it's true. The man who started it all, who fell in love with the role and continued to act it despite his declining health, all because he could make children happy. He is insignificant now. He's not the first incarnation. He wasn't the first to leave the planet. He's not the origin of this beloved character anymore. He is now an insignificant speck on the billions-year-long road of the timeless child's lifetime. Some people might say that the first Doctor was the first to take the name Doctor, so in spirit, he's still the first. But no, you're wrong. If Hartnell was the first with the name Doctor, then who is Jo Martin playing? She's clearly a previous incarnation, as she has no sonic screwdriver and she calls the TARDIS ship. Yet, she also calls herself the Doctor. William Hartnell is no longer the first, and if he were alive today, that would probably make him cry. Number 6. There is no longer any mystery to the Doctor. It was originally ambiguous why he left Gallifrey, why he acted different from other Time Lords. There was an air of subtlety, of uncertainty surrounding his past. Even after we learned the name of his race, his planet, and saw other Time Lords, he was still this enigmatic figure who defied all the staples of his species, and we never knew exactly why. Now, we are told all of those things deliberately. He's different because he's actually not a Time Lord. He left because he quite literally did not belong. Doctor Who is no longer a question because Chibnall just gave us the answer. The answer is the timeless child. Do you see how much that ruins everything? You could say that there's actually more mystery now because we don't know where the Doctor originally came from. But here's the thing. I am not curious about what the timeless child is or where it came from, because the chosen one, most special in the entire universe, is the most boring, cliche trope in all of fiction. I've seen it 1,000 times, and so has everyone else. At this point, the Doctor is basically just God. I'm not curious about where God comes from, because there's no context. The mystery before was that there were confusing contradictions between the Doctor's biology and his actions. Now the only mystery is, I just haven't told you the rest yet, lol. And number 7, it just doesn't matter. This huge, earth-shattering revelation is swept to the side as 13 and Ruth look at the camera and say, "This will not affect my life or actions in any way." Seriously, that's what happens in the episode. So Chibnall just obliterated the canon and many of the best themes of the show for no reason. There is no character development, no plot progression, nothing. This is just an info dump, a PowerPoint that makes everything exponentially worse. Chibnall and the BBC never stopped and thought to themselves, do I have the right to do this? Should I do this? Is this change disrespectful to everyone that made this show so great in the past half century? It's disgraceful. Believe it or not, this isn't even everything. I'm sure there are plenty of other plot holes and theme-breaking issues I haven't even considered yet. These have all just been off the top of my head as I sat down to write this script. Mind you, I haven't watched any classic Who in over 5 years. So if you know of any others, throw them down in the comments. I'll keep a running list. All that said, I am done with Doctor Who. I'll still talk about it and specifically discuss how awful Series 12 was, but I'm not watching anymore. It has been completely soiled by Chris Chibnall. Soiled, all thanks to one hack fraud of a writer. Stay frosty.